A young woman cuts through a quiet suburban park, breathing hard, her gaze darting, searching for someone, anyone who might anchor her. She finds a man sitting alone on a weathered wooden bench and moves toward him without hesitation, drawn by something she couldn't name, something that felt safe. A few paces away, a German shepherd abandons the stick it had been chasing. The dog turns back, but not toward her. Its attention locks onto something beyond. Passers-by see nothing unusual. A quiet man, his dog. They don't see what he used to be. A former Navy SEAL who registers danger before it arrives. She reaches him. "Please, help me," she whispers. The dog isn't watching her. It's already fixed on the men closing in behind her. If this kind of story speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe and be part of the journey. Late afternoon light sank across a suburban park in Eugene, falling soft on empty trails, as though the world had quietly stepped back from itself. On a worn bench near the path, Caleb Vance sat alone. To a stranger's eye, relaxed. To anyone who knew better, held in place by a discipline that never fully releases. Former Navy SEAL. He wore awareness the way other men wear skin, constant, involuntary, impossible to shed. His head barely shifted. His eyes missed nothing. The cadence of approaching footsteps, a rhythm that changed. The small disturbances most people filter out without ever knowing they existed. Even motionless, Caleb looked like a man who had never once stopped being ready. The park's stillness was a thin membrane stretched over something else entirely. Ahead of him by a few yards, his dog wove between the trees, retrieving a stick with a focused energy, controlled, never spilling into disorder. Caleb had thrown it without thinking, the motion practiced, automatic. This was how he managed the edges, small rituals, repeated until they formed a wall between him and everything underneath. For a stretch, the quiet held. Then it didn't. Footsteps broke across the path, too fast, too ragged to belong. Caleb's head shifted, not sharply, just enough. A young woman appeared, moving as though something behind her had mass and intent. She wasn't dressed for running. Her breathing carried no sustainable rhythm. Dark hair stuck to her face, and her eyes swept the space in quick, fractured bursts, never settling long enough to find safety. She reached him before her body fully slowed. Her fingers caught his sleeve and tightened, gripping as though he might vanish if she let go. "Please, help me," she said, voice thin, urgent, balanced on the edge of breaking. "They're coming." Caleb didn't flinch. He didn't offer comfort either. He just looked at her. Truly looked. Words can be rehearsed, but fear like hers doesn't live in the throat. It lives deeper, in the stutter of breath, in the shoulders that won't soften, even when there's nowhere left to run. Quote 3, she added, swallowing hard. Quote 4. The sentences stumbled over each other. The truth beneath them did not. His training told him danger was already seconds away. Behind her, something stirred through the leaves. The dog came back. Elena registered it too late. Sound arrived first. Soft, deliberate paws on packed earth behind her. By the time she turned, the animal was already close. Larger than she expected. Body wound tight with restrained power, each stride measured, closing the gap like it had purpose. For one frozen instant, it felt personal, like the dog had chosen her. Her breath locked. She couldn't move. Its eyes met hers, sharp, steady, not wild, but focused in a way that pressed against her ribs. No bark, no bared teeth. The silence was worse. This was something that didn't need warnings before it acted. Caleb's voice reached her, low, even, unhurried. "He won't hurt you." A beat of silence. "Not unless he has a reason." She didn't understand, but she held perfectly still. The dog reached her, then passed. So close, the displaced air brushed her skin. Its attention slid off her completely, as though she had never been the point. Its head swiveled, body dropping slightly, every fiber of focus locking onto something behind her. Elena felt it then, that shift, the air around them tightening like a wire drawn taut. The dog hadn't been coming for her, it had been coming through her. It stopped beside Caleb, positioned just ahead of him now, body angled toward the path, steady, coiled, waiting. No command had been given, none was needed. Caleb followed its line of sight, and then he saw them. The man out front moved with a kind of ease that had nothing to do with genuine concern. His stride was deliberate. His face arranged into something that read as composure, not worry, but control, worn like a second's skin. Walter Cross carried himself the way certain men do when they've never had to earn the silence of a room. Authority wasn't something he claimed. He simply occupied it, the way weather occupies sky. The two behind him were different animals entirely. One was built heavy, shoulders rolled forward, a man who solved problems by leaning into them. The other couldn't hold still, gaze jumping from surface to surface, cataloguing, trusting nothing long enough to let it settle. Walter's eyes found Elena first, then slid to Caleb. Something behind that look was measuring, weighing, filing away. When he spoke, the warmth in his voice had been rehearsed. "There you are," he said, as though she'd wandered off at a family picnic. ___, quote, _8, ___. Elena's grip tightened. Caleb felt it through the fabric, a tremor running bone deep. "She's not well," Walter went on, shifting his attention fully to Caleb now. His tone softened into something almost apologetic. "My daughter-in-law isn't in a good state. We just want to bring her home." Every word landed clean, reasonable, polished, smooth as river stone. Elena shook her head. The sound barely escaped her throat. "He's lying." Caleb didn't turn to her. He didn't have to. What was already in front of him told him everything. The park went on around them as though none of this existed. A couple slowed their walk, looked long enough to understand they wanted no part of it, and kept moving. Distance was always simpler than involvement. It always had been. Caleb stood from the bench. Not fast, not dramatic, just inevitable. The space around him changed when he did. Open ground became geometry, lines, distances, something with edges. The dog moved with him. No signal given, no pause to decide, just quiet understanding, forged in a language older than words. Elena's voice came again, thin as thread, pulled between two breaths. Caleb's gaze held on Walter, steady, unhurried, unmoved by the version of reality being laid at his feet like a gift no one asked for. He said nothing to her, but the way he shifted, just half a step forward, just enough to redraw the line between her body and theirs, said everything that needed saying. He hadn't reacted immediately, but something behind his eyes had changed the instant He looked at Elena. Fear, like hers, didn't grow from confusion. It grew from repetition, from a body that already knew what came next. He rose from that bench slowly, making nothing of it, turning no heads on purpose. Half a step was all it took to place himself squarely between her and the three men closing in. Rex changed alongside him. The easy looseness from moments before vanished, replaced by something coiled, precise. His weight shifted forward, distributed with a discipline that didn't come from training alone. Each step landed small, calibrated, as though the dog was solving distance and angle simultaneously. Ears pinned ahead, spine curved, not tense, but loaded. Ready. Walter kept his voice level, though the softness had burned off. 13, he said, speaking to Caleb the way a man explains directions to a stranger. 14. A pause, deliberate, letting the words breathe as though they carried their own authority. 15. Behind Caleb, Elena's fingers dug in harder. Her voice barely held its own shape. He's lying. He hurts me. One of the men behind Walter shifted forward, a fraction of a step, then froze when his gaze dropped to Rex. That dog needs a leash, he muttered. He wanted it to sound dismissive. The hitch in his voice betrayed him. Caleb didn't give him a glance. The distance between them compressed again. No one appeared to move first. No order was given, but the tension gathered anyway. Silent, patient, building the way pressure builds before a crack finds its line. Walter adjusted, dropped his tone lower. Something harder lived at its edges now. Quote 19. Quote, he said. Quote 20. Quote, Caleb met his stare without a single blink. Quote 21. Quote, the heavier man behind Walter forced out a laugh, short, hollow, more performance than feeling. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 22, underscore, underscore. His next half step hadn't even landed before the answer came, faster than any conscious thought could track. A crack split the air, jaws snapping shut with controlled force, stopping just short of flesh. Not a miss, a promise. The man flinched backward, a curse hissing through his teeth. His feet stuttered on the ground before finding purchase. The second one went rigid, eyes pinned on Rex, shoulders locking tight. His body had already made the decision his mouth was still catching up to. Keep that thing away from me. The voice had thinned to something brittle. Every shred of bravado from moments ago, erased. Walter held his ground, but for the first time, no words came. His gaze shifted from Rex to Caleb and back again, recalculating, weighing a variable he hadn't accounted for. Caleb spoke low. Each word landed with its own weight. She said no. Nothing after that, but the sentence settled into the gap between them like concrete hardening. The tension didn't break, it compressed, pulled inward, drew tighter. One more step from either side, and the whole thing would shatter. Then, a siren. Distant at first, threading through the stillness from somewhere along the road past the park, growing sharper with each second. The effect was instant. One man turned his head toward the sound. The other exhaled hard and stepped back before he realized he'd moved. Walter stayed motionless a beat longer. His eyes tracked the siren, and something in his expression cinched. Just barely. Not here. Not now. He retreated one step. 24, he said. The composure was gone from his voice. Caleb gave him nothing. Walter turned. The two men fell into step behind him, wordless. Their pace was measured, but faster now. The earlier swagger replaced by something guarded, watchful. Within seconds, the trees swallowed all three of them. Rex didn't pursue. He held his position, gaze fixed on the path, until the last trace of movement dissolved. His body stayed angled toward the tree line, as though the encounter hadn't fully released him. Only when the space emptied completely did something in him ease, a fraction. The siren drifted past without slowing. Quiet returned, but it wore a different shape now. The apartment door latched with a soft click, and still Elena turned slightly, half expecting it to swing open again. Her body hadn't yet registered that no one was following. Caleb noticed. He said nothing. He moved through the room with an unhurried familiarity, placing things where they belonged without thinking, giving her the room to find her footing in the stillness. Rex stopped near the entrance. He didn't lie down, didn't settle. Just held his ground, as though the world outside hadn't quite finished with them yet. Elena stood motionless another moment, then let out a slow breath and lowered herself into a seat. Her hands stayed drawn close, fingers clenching and loosening in a rhythm that served no purpose. Time passed before she spoke. __, quote _25, __. Her voice came low, aimed at no one in particular. Caleb leaned against the wall, watching, listening. Quote, 26, she went on. Quote, 27. A brief silence. Quote, 28. She studied her hands as though they belonged to a stranger. Quote, 29. Caleb's face didn't shift, but something in the way he carried his weight changed, barely perceptible. Quote, 30. And here, for the first time, her voice softened. Quote, 31. The sentence broke off. She didn't finish. Silence filled the room again, but not the hollow kind. He's gone now, she said, quieter still. And after that, it was like I stayed in place, but everything around me became something different. Caleb gave a single nod. And Walter? Elena's jaw set hard. Quote, 35. Rex shifted at the door. His ears turned toward her voice. Quote, 36, she said. Quote, 37. Caleb straightened from the wall. Quote, 38. She lifted her eyes to him, uncertain. Quote, 39. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up his phone and stepped to the side. The line connected fast. Lucas Grant skipped the pleasantries. His tone carried the weight of someone accustomed to navigating difficult terrain without letting feeling cloud the process. Caleb kept things short. Domestic abuse, ongoing pattern, no reports filed, no hard proof in hand. Lucas went quiet for a beat. Then, you don't have a case, nothing that holds up. Caleb glanced in Elena's direction. There has to be a way. There is, Lucas answered. You just haven't found it. Medical documentation, footage, anything on record. Without that, it's his version against hers, and you already know whose version carries more weight. The call ended not long after. Caleb came back, his face calm but sharper now. He records everything. Elena gave a slow nod. Cameras inside the house. He said they were for protection. A brief silence. He showed me once, when he'd been drinking. Caleb's gaze tightened. Another nod. That shifted everything. The following night arrived without fanfare. The house sat dark, just as Elena had described. Caleb entered without pause, punching in the code she'd given him. Rex trailed close behind, silent, alert, his focus locking in the moment they crossed the threshold. The air inside carried a different quality, heavy, stale, like something sealed away and forgotten. Caleb moved through the space deliberately, not hurried, clearing each room with trained precision. Rex needed no command. He began working on his own, slower than usual, muzzle low to the floor, pausing in certain places before pressing forward. He stopped beside a cabinet. Caleb followed him. Inside, the first camera system, exactly where Elena had said it would be. One piece secured. But Rex kept going. He drifted deeper through the house, then halted near a closed drawer. No scratching, no bark, just stillness, fixed and certain. Caleb pulled it open. Papers inside. At first glance, nothing remarkable. Then he started reading. Letters, dozens, all addressed the same way, written across years. Different handwriting, identical purpose. He moved through them faster now. Search notices, contact attempts, official documents linked to missing persons cases, and then something else entirely. Bank statements, withdrawals, signatures that didn't belong to the account holder. The picture assembled itself rapidly, too rapidly. This wasn't mere control, it was calculated. When Elena saw the papers later, she didn't speak immediately. Her hands hovered above them, trembling, as though contact might erase what lay before her. Her voice broke off. Caleb said nothing. Let the silence hold. A whisper. The words emerged slowly, as if her mind required time to catch up with what her eyes already understood. More pages, more evidence. Her breath hitched. The understanding didn't arrive all at once. It spread, layer by layer, until there was no corner left untouched. Everything she had believed about her life, about being unwanted, about being alone in the world, all of it shifted beneath her in a single moment. Her knees buckled slightly. She had to sit. I wasn't just... She couldn't finish. Caleb's voice came low, steady. No. She looked at him. Something deeper than fear lived in her eyes now. I lost them, she said. All this time, I believed I had no one. Rex moved closer, stopped just beside her, not touching, but there. Elena dropped her head, her shoulders trembling once, then again. This time it wasn't fear. Something sealed tight was finally cracking open. By morning, the documents no longer sat in Caleb's apartment. Lucas had them. Things began moving, quietly but with clear direction. Calls placed, records pulled, names cross-referenced against systems that had overlooked them for years. When Lucas called back, his voice carried a different weight. We found her, he said. Your mother. Elena didn't answer right away. The word hadn't taken shape yet, hadn't become real. Underscore, quote, underscore, 56, underscore, he added. That evening, the meeting was arranged. Caleb didn't press. He asked once, whether she wanted it here. She said yes. When the door opened, neither woman moved at first. The older woman stood on the threshold, hesitant, as if crossing it might confirm something she still wasn't ready to hold. Elena stayed where she was, her thoughts louder than the quiet between them. Quote 57. Elena said softly. Quote, 58, the woman replied. That was all it took. They moved toward each other, slowly at first, then without reservation. The embrace wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. It carried years of distance, confusion, and something stubborn enough to outlast both. Caleb stepped back, gave them room. Rex settled nearby, unhurried, his attention no longer fixed on the door.